Hello! So today I'll be talking about what is the amygdala. So, what is the amygdala? Well, the amygdala is a part of the brain and it's located here in the center of the brain. And it's part of a system called the limbic system, which regulates memory, emotions, and behavior. The limbic system. And it's called the amygdala because amygdala is Greek for almond, and it's named almond because, well, it's shaped like an almond. And there's actually two amygdalas in each side of the brain. So this is like the front view of the brain. And you can see two amygdalas, one over here and the other one over here. So, what are the functions of the amygdala? Well, the first function is feel anxiety and pain, regulating fear, anxiety, and pain. And the amygdala is important for what we call fear-based reflexes. And fear-based reflexes, an example of one is, say a tiger was running towards you. Now, if you didn't have an amygdala, you would be thinking, well, is this tiger going to pose a danger to me? Will it eat me? But if you have an amygdala, which of course you do, then you'd be thinking, well, there's a tiger coming towards me. I just have to run away as fast as I can. So the amygdala is important for these reflexes based on fear. The important thing the amygdala does is fear learning. So fear learning is learning from fear. So you could think an example would be, say every time you take a chocolate, you get shocked, an electric shock. Then the next time you're probably not going to take another chocolate because you know you're going to get an electric shock. So you're basically associating the fear of getting an electric shock with taking a chocolate. So the next job of the amygdala is anger, regulating anger. Now, two scientists, Kluver and Busey, in the 1930s, did a very important experiment to prove that the amygdala is important for anger. What they did was, they removed the amygdalas of rhesus monkeys and then observed the behavior that happened next. And what the rhesus monkeys did surprised everyone. The rhesus monkeys became more docile and calm. And so, as you can see, when we removed the amygdala, they became less angry. They became less fearful. So that's how they proved this is true. And when the amygdala is damaged, then we call it Kluver-Bucy syndrome, and then you become very more calm. So the next job is feel good emotions. And by feel good, I mean emotions that the emotion that you get or the feeling that you get when you earn a reward. So that emotion is also a job of the amygdala. So now let's talk about the anatomy of the amygdala. So the amygdala is made out of these things we call nuclei. And nuclei are these clusters of neurons, not to get confused with the nuclei in cells, which are the center of the cell. So the first three nuclei are part of a group called the basolateral group. And the basolateral group is made out of three nuclei, which are the lateral nucleus, the basal nucleus, and the accessory basal nucleus, which is also called the basomedial nucleus. And these three nuclei are part of the group. And the next part, which is not part of the group, is the central nucleus. And the central nucleus is on the top over here. So and then the next part is another group, which is called the cortical-medial group. And it has two nuclei, which are the cortical group, the cortical nucleus, and the medial nucleus. So these are the parts, and although the amygdala isn't shaped like this, it's more shaped like an almond, you get the idea of what are the different nuclei in the brain, the amygdala. So let's first talk about the lateral nucleus, and we'll go and talk about each of the functions of each of these nuclei. So let's start with the lateral nucleus. The lateral nucleus is important with conditioning based on vision and hearing. So let's look at this image over here. As you can see, we have this is the often trick for dog training, and we see that this is the first step. And as you can see, we're just bringing the food, and the dog is already drooling, and that's an unconditional. And by unconditional, we mean not learned. so it's a not learned response. But over here, when by the bell, we have taught the dog to, when it hears the bell ringing, it should think of food is coming. Then that's a conditional or learned response. So the logical nucleus is really important in this part of this part, and it takes its information from vision and hearing. The next part is the basal nucleus, and the basal nucleus is also important for CS and US, which is CS stands for conditional stimulus and US stands for unconditional stimulus. So it's also important for the formation of fear memories. The next part is the accessory basal nucleus, also called the basal medial nucleus. And the basal medial nucleus is important for mediating fear responses and determining whether an environment is safe or not. So think of it like this. If say I have a scenario where the tiger was running towards you, if you were so scared, you were paralyzed, and you just went and ran away, and say there was a meadow and a forest, and then you just, by your fear, you just ran into the meadow, that wouldn't be a very logical decision, because then you could, the lion would have an easier time trying to find you than if you went to the forest. So what the basal medial nucleus does is it mediates the fear response, so the other logical parts of the brain can react and say, well, let's go to the forest because that's a more safer place. So, and it's also important for determining whether an environment is safe or not. The next part is the central nucleus, and it's important for pain memories and mediating fear and pain responses, just like the basal medial nucleus, because it's a very important thing. And it's also important for pain memories. The next part is the cortical medial group, which we'll first talk about the medial nucleus. So the medial nucleus is important for innate emotional behavior and social stimuli. And innate emotional behavior, innate means natural, born with. So it's just born, the emotional behavior you're born with. And maybe you'll get crying is an innate emotional behavior. And social stimuli basically means something from the society that evokes a thought or an action from. So that's the medial nucleus's job. The next part is the cortical nucleus. And the cortical nucleus is important for odor-driven behavior, and odors are smells. So you could say, for example, say that there's cookies in the oven, and it smells so good and makes you happy, then that would be an odor-driven behavior. So those are the parts of the amygdala, and that's their jobs. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want, you can also watch my videos over here, the hippocampus and introduction to the nervous system. Bye!